being here today. We're talking about how to optimize your operations, organizations operations, your business operations, your department operations, how to optimize how you do the work that you do and how you show up in a recession. I started this topic, sharing on this topic about how to lead during an economic downturn and how to thrive and not just survive last week. And I'm not here to be a doomsday person or a killjoy. It's important, though, for us as leaders not to stick our heads in the sand. And that means talking about topics that may not be comfortable, may not be popular. It is important that we come from a place of being proactive and not reactive. And that is what we are going to be talking about today. So stick around. Welcome to Leadership Untitled with Kareen Turner. That is me. I am a leadership expert and operations strategist. And on this episode, or on this podcast rather, I talk about all things related to leadership excellence and operational excellence as well. And today is no different. As I shared in the intro, I'm going to be sharing with you my top strategies, my jumpstart strategies for how to optimize your operations during a recession, during a time of crisis, during an economic downturn. Many of these strategies are not just in place for a recession. They're anytime that your business, you can employ them anytime that your business is going through a rough patch. We'll say that, where you're not performing, your business is not performing as expected. Not necessarily a crisis per se, but you'll have the tools that you'll need to take action to again be proactive instead of reactive. Last week in episode 28, I shared how to lead through a recession. And then in that episode, I talked about a study that shared the leadership traits that you need to activate during times of crisis, during times of need. Part of that, again, is being able to call upon those traits and be practicing and practicing them so that when you need them, you actually know that you have them, finding ways to develop them. So, for more information, please be sure to go back and watch episode 28 and then come back and watch or listen, however you are enjoying this podcast, to episode 29. So, again, I'm going to be sharing today how to ensure that your operations are primed for what's around the corner. Again, whether that's an economic downturn, a recession, whether it is that your business is not performing to the expectations that you have set, how do you manage what is coming around the corner? Effectively manage what's coming around the corner. And if you're thinking, why would I change? Everything's going fine as a leader, again, whether it is of a department, whether it is of a vice president role, whether it is the CEO, the founder, the COO, any C-suite position. If you are listening and you're thinking everything is fine, I don't need to change anything, then I especially need for you to keep listening and to take note of what I'm sharing in this episode. One more note from what I shared last week, again in episode 28, is that organizations are designed, and leadership in corporations, organizations are designed to be reactive. And part of preparing for and being at the forefront and being poised to lead through a shift in the marketplace, is being proactive. So, yes, everything may be going fine for you right now. And I hope that that continues. That is my hope. Again, these strategies are not just for economic downturns, they're for any shifts that you may experience. But it's practicing being proactive so that you have the tools in place that you need when it really matters. And just like you need to activate specific leadership traits during a shift in the marketplace, you're there. That's also true of your operations. There you go. That's also true of your operations. So let's jump into my top three jumpstart actions that you need to take to help ensure the stability of your operations. The first thing is to shift into a high service mindset. I mentioned again in last week's episode about contraction, and I've been talking about that a lot because during times of confusion, uncertainty, and fear, we tend to contract instead of expand. And with contraction comes a me focus. And as a leader, if you're shifting inward and thinking about your pain, what's happening to you, which is normal, and I encourage you to feel those feelings and not push them aside, but find ways to move through them, to acknowledge them so that they're not holding you back. So I want you to be a human still, but I also want to impress upon you that that me attitude can't seep into your business, because once you shift into a me first, a me focus, then that is disaster for your company. So instead, I want you to think about expanding. I want you to think about how can I be of greater service to those who are currently part of my community and those who may need the services of what I offer, the services or the products of what I have to offer. So, really anchoring in service and being of service. And I want you not just to be laser focused on your clients, but also thinking about your team members as well. Because your team members, especially right now, are probably going through a lot in their lives. They're probably wondering what's happening and feeling that same confusion and uncertainty that you're feeling. And if everyone is feeling that way, if everyone is contracting, again, that doesn't spell a good outcome for your organization or for your clients. So instead, once you start leading with service, ensuring that your team members are feeling secure and safe and doing what you can and being transparent. Again, see episode 28 for leadership. That's why I started with leadership traits and what's needed, because first and foremost, you need to be sure that you are leading, because once you provide a safe environment, even if that information is tough to share, but you're being transparent, that does create a safe environment, a secure environment of trust, building trust. Then your team members are then free to think about expanding and have those ideas that you need in order to thrive through this time. So keep service at the forefront. So, jumping off from there, my next point is to think about who you are serving. So, you've got your mindset focused on service. Now, think about who you are serving. So many of you likely created some type of avatar, ideal customer profile that you may have grown out of, or maybe he or she, that avatar, it still guides your actions, but your customer base has expanded beyond that avatar, which one is incredible and awesome. So congratulations for that, but it's still a good place to return to, especially as you are beginning to anchor yourself in service. Who are you serving? So I want you to return to that person. And if not that person, think about your clientele, your customer base as a whole. And I want you to get deep with how you are thinking about them. I want you to ask yourself these questions. How are they hurting, if at all? These market shifts don't impact every segment of our population in the same way. So think about, are they hurting, if at all? What are some of their concerns? What are they experiencing? And how is it impacting their life? And then what are ways that they are thinking to solve these issues? Now, as you're asking these questions, they're not all related to the product or the service that you offer, but it's diving into as best as you can from the information that you have. And believe me, you have a lot of information on your customer base. It is about jumping into their psyche. And these are just a few questions to get you started. But I want you to jump into their psyche as much as possible. And if your client group is too varied and you're thinking, there's no way that I can think of what this whole base is feeling, then return to your original avatar. And if you never had one, this might be a good time to think about who is the person you intended to serve and really get granular with it. What is their age? Where do they live? Their kids? What kind of domicile do they live in? If it's in an apartment, a house, a townhome, what kind of foods do they eat, but really thinking about your original avatar and developing one if you didn't, and then going through these questions that I just shared with you. Again, how are they hurting, if at all? What are their concerns? What are they experiencing, and how is it impacting their lives? And how are they thinking about, or how are they going about solving these issues? If you have a team, this is a team exercise. This is, again, a time for you to be expansive and to show trust to your team, especially those who are directly interacting with your customers. If you don't have a team, or this is still a best practice, ask your clients, talk to them, ask them how they are feeling, what they are going through. Whether that's a survey, whether it's an email, whether it is small focus groups, ask their clients directly how they are feeling, what they're going through, how they're solving these problems to get a better understanding of how you can serve greater. Chances are, especially if you have a team that deals directly with your clients, or you yourself are dealing directly with your client base, chances are they've either left clues for how they are feeling, or they've outright told you what's going on. And as I said, you already have a lot of information about who it is that you are serving. There are clues everywhere. And if you look closely, they've probably told you straight out, this is what's happening. And more importantly, this is what they are expecting from your company, your organization. So, the takeaway point for my second one, for my second strategy, is to listen. Think about who you are serving and then listen. Be mindful for the clues that they have left. My third and final plan strategy is to create a plan of action based on those answers that you have about your client, based on client data. There you go. Based on data directly from your clients, create an action plan. And by plan, I mean something like a business plan. And I know as soon as I said business plan, you're probably like, well, that's it for me. Thanks. But I want you to stay with me. Don't leave me. Stay with me. So, what is your long term vision? How are you wanting to thrive through these next 6 months, through the next year, through the next night, like I was about to say 90 years, through the next year and a half, 18 months? What is your vision for what your organization is going to look like, how it's going to grow in terms of services and in terms of products that you offer? So, again, what is that long term vision? What's the market analysis? Look at what your competitors are doing. What are some industry trends that are coming up? What are you noticing? Again, expansion. Don't feel that you have to have all of the answers. That is probably one of the number one leadership traps that I see, is that as a leader, I'm supposed to know everything. And if I don't know everything, somehow I'm not meant to be here. Imposter syndrome. Somehow I'm not smart enough to lead. No, your job as a leader is to organize and be sure, yes, you can have incredible ideas, but be sure that you are empowering the people who you have hired, the subject matter experts, that they have the resources, that they have the autonomy to do the work that they need to do. And And part of that means that looking outward. So market analysis, what are your competitors doing? What are the trends? Looking to other industries. I talked about that in another episode on innovation and how sometimes looking to another industry can spark an idea about how you can take some of their practices into what you are doing and disrupt your field. What services or products do you need to add? Do you need to edit? Or perhaps you need to completely delete and remove because they're no longer serving towards that long term vision. And then once you have that long term vision, how will you market it? What technology do you need? And then lastly, of course, is that financial analysis. So, what is the cost? What will be the return on it of investment on your investment? And then you're going to assign responsibility for each milestone to your team, or if you're a solopreneur, to yourself, and looking to see how you can contract out to get help towards executing on that vision. A business plan is not just for the start of your business. It is truly a living and breathing document that needs to shape shift as your organization shifts. And oftentimes we think of a business plan as the start, and then we think of a plan as a strategy. And instead, that's how you execute on the plan. Your strategies are how you execute on that business plan. The business plan is a cohesive vision that will guide your decisions as you move forward. When you're not sure which direction to go in, going back to that plan, that vision helps to say, yes, this is in line with where we want to go. No, this is not. It helps with decision making. And it doesn't have to be a laborious process at all. Answering the quick questions that I shared with you, plus you can Google a lot of this as well to see what are the questions to ask, but it is worth your time because instead of having one plan, which is optimal, one plan with a lot of strategies that you're going to execute, what you'll end up doing is just throwing idea after idea after idea into the marketplace. And you will seem frenzied. Your organization will seem frenzied and not cohesive, uncohesive instead, and or disjointed, instead of having one solid plan that you are executing on and marching towards a vision. So again, what are you building towards during this economic downturn? What are your goals? And I invite you to not again contract as you think of what your vision is. You're not just trying to survive, you're trying to thrive. And it can't just be money. I want all of you out there to survive and to be incredibly successful. Your organizations, the work that you do, I trust is needed in the marketplace. So when I say that your goal can't just be money, I'm not saying that I don't want you to survive. I do want you to survive and financially thrive, but your clients will sense that desperation of needing to survive. And so I want you to, instead of focusing on surviving, go back to your purpose, go back to why you are doing the work that you do, why you started your organization, why you're working where you're working. And even if you're working for someone else in another organization, think about your team members. Think about the leadership that you offer to your team members. Think about the service that your team provides to, whether it is internally or to an external customer. What you do matters. And so reminding that and getting crystal clear about what they need. Again, whether that's your team members or your clients, becoming very crystal clear on what they need during this time. And then once you think about it, finding uncommon and creative ways to meet those needs. And most importantly, it may not be gutting your prices or your service costs. That is sometimes the first place that we begin because it's the hardest, perhaps, on our bottom line, but it's the easiest. Well, it's an economic downturn, it's a recession. Let me cut my prices. Instead, I want you to do the work first because perhaps that's not what your client, your customer base is looking for. Instead, they might be looking for a dial into the services that are already there. So be sure that before you take action, think about who you are serving, thinking about those pain points and creating that vision, or not even just pain points, but also, as I heard, what brings them pleasure, uh, and solving and helping them to get to that place of what brings them pleasure, thinking about what your client base needs and working towards that, incorporating it into a business plan for a cohesive vision. For a cohesive vision is where you need to focus. So, in recap, my starting place, my jump off spot for optimizing your organizations: one, fix your mindset. Focus on service. Develop a mindset of service. Listening to your clients. What are they saying? What have they said? What, going back to that client avatar, thinking about them as a group and really diving into and putting yourself as much as you can into their shoes to think about what it is that they may be feeling right now. And then please ask them as well. It's a two-step process. You're thinking about what it is and then finding ways to verify or to find out what they are actually feeling. Again, they've probably left you clues or told you outright what's happening with them. So, listening to your clients and then update or create a business plan that, again, addresses what is that plan? How are you thriving through the next 6 months, through the next 18 months, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years? What is that vision that you have to grow and to thrive? Of course, there are more actions that can be taken, but again, this is my recommendation for a jump off point. I want to continue this conversation. So if you are watching, wherever you are watching, jump into the comments, share with me what your thoughts are on how to optimize your operations or actions that you have taken to optimize your operations, because we can all learn from each other. So share in the comments. If you are listening wherever you can find podcasts, then you can reach out to me on social media. Instagram is probably the easiest place. I'm at Kareen V Turner, Kareen. V is in Victor, Turner, and we can have the conversation there. As I do with every episode, I'm going to encourage you to share so that we can continue to build an incredible community of influential leaders who are working to move to the forefront, to position all of us as leaders in not just in your organizations, but in your industries, in your fields as well. So thank you for listening. Episode 29. I'll see you here next week.